Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shitshow. Bum 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 bum. All right, please continue to pray for me by singing along with me, gesturing at your screens, and leaving a shit on this video. Let's do it again while we wait for a few more people. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, first and foremost, I want to thank you guys for praying for me yesterday. I had a job interview yesterday, and I think it went beautifully. And I got a lot of prayer yesterday. I mean, a lot of them were likes, but there were a few dislikes, and more importantly, a lot of people interacted with the video, so it went very well. I'm going to be teaching in a different campus in the fall, and I got a good vibe going around the campus. I got to meet the president of the school, and just in general, I got a good vibe. But there's another reason why the interview went so much better. You see, I'm recording this in 2025. I'm doing financially so much better off than I have been in years past. And so if I'm temporarily out of work a few months, it's not going to bother me as much. And so just the lower amount of anxiety dealing with that allowed the whole job to turn out so much more smoothly. There's a big difference between going to work to stay ahead of the game versus going to work just to breathe. And I don't like being in that latter camp. I spent too much time in there in years past, and it was not fun. Not fun. Especially, not only are you going to work just to breathe, but just to have the minimal amount of social connection, where you have no social life outside of work, and you need that check in order just to eat tomorrow. Oh my God, work will take advantage of you if you allow yourself to be in a situation like that. And fortunately, I haven't been anywhere near that for, I'd say, the last 2 years, and life is just so much better. To give you an idea of how financially tight I was in times past, I used to have a big fear. I don't anymore. I used to have a big fear that when I would be driving on the road, if I just had the misfortune of being in front of a police car. Now, do I like to speed? Do I like to run away from the police? No. But anybody can make mistakes, right? And cops sometimes write bullshit tickets. I think we've all been there before. And the anxiety would cause me to freeze up, and all my good driving skills out the window. One time I was on the road. I was living in Seattle. I had just lost my job. I just had some tricky financial situation. I can't remember the exact details, but I had the misfortune of being in front of a police car. It was 10 o'clock at night. Actually, I was living in the car. It was 10 o'clock at night. I was just on my way to my favorite haunt, living out of my car. I had a favorite parking lot to use, and I had the misfortune of being in front of a cop car. And I decided to pull into a parking lot to let the cop car pass. Driving at the speed limit, nothing crazy. All my lights are working. Everything is going fine. I'm not doing anything crazy. It's not like I'm driving without insurance or expired license or no. I'm just nervous that I'm going to make a dumb mistake of some sort, right? So I pull into this parking lot thinking that the cop is going to pass. Well, I pull in there and he follows me in there and pulls me over. It turns out the parking lot belonged to a church. And the cop later explained that they had a lot of robberies and all that, explained what in the world I was doing. And I was so tense up, I actually told him the truth. I thought, I'm sorry. I had just lost my job, and seeing a cop car behind me kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety. I thought for sure I was so busted after saying that. But to my surprise, he actually understood that. I guess it helped that I had all my decor and all that in the back of the car. And so it was very obvious I was living in the car. So I guess that made it a little bit more understandable. But living with that level, and I probably didn't sleep very well that night after that either. Even though he didn't give me a ticket, the amount of adrenaline that courses through your body in an encounter like that will really keep you up for a good number of hours after that. And so, but that's the level of financial anxiety I used to live with day in and day out. It's not just being followed by a cop car, right? It's also anytime any of my belongings threatens to break down, right? My car, my computers, right? I see something funny on my computer, I get scared that I'm going to have to replace my computer, right? I hear something funny about my car, or bad news at the workplace, or any number of things that might cost money, create a lot of anxiety, right? Right? Any sign that I might get sick, right? Oh my God, I can't miss work when I'm sick. Any sign that I might get COVID-19 or a mouth sore. As a teacher, mouth sores really bothered me. They used to bother me a whole lot more when I also had the financial anxiety to go along with it. Right now, I just have the pain, but I don't want to be anywhere near that anymore. It's frightening. It creates a lot of tension. It creates a wedge at work, right? When you need the check just to eat tomorrow, it's a big difference. And I'm working because I need to eat tomorrow versus I'm working so that I can invest for the future are two very different concepts. They affect your work performance. They really do. They even affect how you commute to work, right? Just like I explained, right? And so I don't want to be anywhere near that again. They affect workplace chemistry. They affect how you deal with your roommates, right? If you're so tight that you can't afford to leave a place in a hurry, they affect your relation with your roommates. They affect everything else, right? Okay. So pray that I get ahead of the game. Pray that I have good chemistry with the new campus. Pray for good financial health. I'm working on, and this is what's been getting me in a lot of trouble lately. I've been working on the Lego Ideas project, and unfortunately, I have a very addictive personality. I have never had a healthy relationship with any job or any hobby. And anytime I get involved in it, I get very deeply involved to the point that I destroy everything. It's frustrating to me. It's very frustrating. I'd love to have a healthy relation with everything that I touch. Right. I had the same problem when I was writing AI for various computer games. I'm having the same problem with Legos. I had the same problem with Bismuth. I had the same problem, and I was doing some chemistry experiments. I discovered that the dust in the household is a interesting chemical soup. I was extracting all sorts of stuff out of the household dust, and I got OCD vacuuming my apartment. It drove a lot of my roommates crazy at that place, right? And so it would have been nice if I did one chemistry experiment and it was done with. But once I do one, I feel like I got to do 15 more. Right. Once I make one art piece, and that's the kind of stuff that gets me in all sorts of trouble. I'm going to get to what kind of trouble in a moment. Okay, and I'm working on also a publication for a computer game that I wrote. Again, the addiction. And unfortunately, I've been sleep deprived, and I've been getting into a lot of near-miss car accidents. I got into 2 yesterday, in one day alone. What had happened was, I'm dating a distant cousin of Eve Curry. And Eve Curry finally has some time to see me. She's been also addicted to her stuff too. She's working on writing a novel, among other things, and she has a borderline addictive personality as well, I would say. And fortunately, both of us are addicted to weird things. Right? We're not using drugs or alcohol or gambling or anything like that. But the way we approach some of these things that we're doing, it might as well be those things. And she has 3 dogs and a snake, believe it or not. But I was on my way to her home, and I ran into traffic, and I was upset. And the reason I was upset was I had pulled into this lane to turn right, and it's a road where you can turn right on red. And this driver in front of me was just such a chicken. And he wouldn't turn right, even though he had like 5 seconds, 7 seconds. And then finally, he gets a chance to turn right. And this really slow pedestrian who's miles away from the crosswalk is approaching it. And he decides he's too chicken to make the turn. Now, the pedestrian gets halfway across the street. Now there's enough space to turn right. He still doesn't want to turn. And I pound my horn at him. And finally, he turns right, and we get to the next red light, and I decided that I have to make fun of him. So I got out of my car to impersonate chicken in front of him. Quack 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 chicken. And he gets so upset that he takes off and almost takes me along with the ride as I'm dancing in front of his car. Get back into my car, and I get to see Eve Curry, and that was a good warm up for the night because of what happened later when I was with Eve Curry. But I get to Eve Curry's home, and now I'm really humbled because I just almost got killed on the road, which was really nice. Because sometimes when I see her, I'm just really excited, and 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 so I was really humbled by that. Now, on our way to the movies, Eve Curry suggested that I use the HOV lane, and it's kind of funny when she suggested it. I almost forgot we had an HOV lane because I spent so much time in the Phoenix area dating in a way that doesn't allow me to use the HOV lanes, right? You guys remember the other relationship I was involved in. So the idea that I could even use an HOV lane while out on a date was kind of a foreign concept to me when she said it. So the HOV lanes here in Phoenix are on the very left of the road. And I pull out to the left of the road, and it dawned on me we're not even going all that much faster. I mean, I passed like 2 cars during the 3 miles that was on the HOV lane. And finally, her GPS barks out that we need to exit. And I'm like, oh! And so I hastily switch over 6 lanes to exit. And by the time I got to the exit, traffic was stalled, and I jammed the brakes, and I just barely made it over to the shoulder. And by the time my car stopped on the shoulder, I was burning rubber from my tires. We could smell burning rubber from my tires, and so a lot of adrenaline. And unfortunately, that's what sleep deprivation. I don't know why we even use the HOV lanes, and that's what sleep in an ideal world I wouldn't have even entertained the idea of the HOV lanes, but just sleep deprivation, not really thinking. Now the other addiction in my life that I want to 86 for good, my eating disorders. Now a lot of people look at me and they can't believe I have a binge eating problem. I really don't in terms of the volume of the food. I have a control problem though. You see, when I get a food craving, it's like I can't focus on anything else. And I can't tell you how many times I've ruined situations over food cravings. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, my last roommate situation, I had a roommate who was an alcoholic. Let's get that out of the way. He had some weird issues, but part of the reason I had a hard time negotiating with him and navigating that was that I was constantly thinking about the next food craving. You got to understand, I spend a lot of time outside the home, right? At the school campus, on hiking trails, at game meetups. And toward the end of my time living there, actually dating people. And so by the time I got home, usually it was to unwind. And so I was always thinking about that next food craving. And as a result, when my roommate complained about how he couldn't find something, he couldn't find his alcohol, or, I misplaced something around the home. Where did I put the TV remote? A lot of times I was pigeonholed by my food craving. In a normal, ideal situation, right? Like right now when I'm not craving food, if somebody is upset they can't find their TV remote, or they're upset they can't fix their water heater, which was what happened the last time we argued, I would get up and look. Even if I have no idea how water heaters work, I would probably Google some information and at least try to be helpful, right? But not when I'm in the middle of a food craving. And I really hate food, because without food getting in the way, I think I could handle relationships better. I could handle conflicts better. I could handle workplace dilemmas a whole lot better, right? So, for example, yesterday when I was interviewing at the other community college, the first thing I paid attention to was how the break rooms look like, because not having somewhere safe to eat used to give me a lot of trouble. But I hate that I have to think about that. I wish food would disappear. If food could be replaced by a pill, even if it would cost the same amount of money as eating 3 meals a day, I would make the switch in a heartbeat, because just not having the emotional drain of that is so much worth it, right? All right. So what did we say here? Pray good working relations at the new campus. Pray for my Lego art projects, and pray that I can do these things without getting addicted to them, unfortunately. Pray for good relations with the Eve Curry and pray that I have good relations with my eating disorder. Again, addiction really pigeonholes that. Actually, all of these problems, you can sum it up as addiction, right? Whether it be the workaholism with my new job, the addiction to my art projects, the addiction to the relationship with Eve Curry, finally having time to see her and not thinking straight, and then my eating disorder. All of this can be summed up with the A word, right? And I need prayers for my recovery from that. This is the Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Shit Show. Bum 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 bum.